Mark, right, the young rich man, he lived the law of Moses, he lived the law of commandments, but he was not willing to impart of his substance for the needy, for the poor and needy. That's the law of consecration in Luke, right? A man's life consists not of the abundance of the things which he possesses. That's the law of consecration. And then in Doctrine and Covenants, we see this perhaps even a little more clearly. I will consecrate of the riches of those who embrace my gospel among the Gentiles unto the poor. The poor shall be exalted, and the rich will be made low. It is not given that one man should possess that which is above another, wherefore the world lieth in sin. It's probably, maybe some people listening to this, that's getting a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because like the more our heart is connected to materialism and the acquisition of wealth and building up our own personal kingdoms, like in a Babylonian way.
This is harder to read.
This is harder and harder to read and accept that this is what the gospel means. But it is. And I have this quote from Brigham Young that the non-producer must live on the products of those who labor. There's no other way.
Yeah.
And that's easy to say, well, that sounds very communistic. But it's just
But it's been through a covenant relationship.
Yeah, but it's not through coercion. It's not through taxation. It's through having a mighty change of heart and understanding the principles of eternity, of celestial law. And that if you have the talents to produce, like, you are blessed with the ability to help others, lift others out of poverty.
Well, and here's what's really beautiful about the law of consecration when it's appropriately applied. We joked about this, I think, before we started recording, but
we joke about it.
We do joke about it, but we joked about the law of consecration kind of is a legit money laundering scheme for Babylon's money, Yes. But in all truthfulness and reality,
because that's what's here. I will consecrate of the riches of those who embrace my gospel among the Gentiles unto the poor of my people who are of the house of Israel.
Yeah.
But what's that saying? Those people who got real good at the Babylon system of the wealth, well, the Lord is going to take their talents, those who enter into the covenant, and he's going to take that wealth that they were able to produce out of Babylon, and he's going to put it into Zion, and to take care of the poor and the needy. So there is this mechanism,
kind of washing of money.
We work in Babylon, but we're kind of cleaning that money and putting it into the kingdom.
Well, and that's exactly where I was going to go, is that it's this principle is so perfect that it actually takes, if you want to say, for lack of a better, this dirty money or this tainted money of Babylon. It takes Babylon's money, and what does it do? It actually washes it. It cleans it. And then you use it, when done appropriately, to make it holy. You take that unclean money, and then when properly applied in Zion, you actually use it to make it holy. Now, for the benefit of others, for the building up of the kingdom. And so it really is a cleansing of something that Babylon has created to make it more perfect and to make it more appropriate to the higher law that the Lord intends for it to be used for. And that's just kind of a really interesting concept of, just as we are washed and cleaned, the money potentially will go through the same process of being washed and being used for a holy purpose to help those
consecrated.
Exactly right. And that's what consecration is. Yeah.
So in the covenant of consecration is the act of essentially becoming a legal heir to the kingdom of God. And there's a diary entry from Wilford Woodruff in Missouri where he consecrated all of his property to the church. And he said he freely consecrates and dedicates his properties that he may be a lawful heir in the kingdom of God, even the celestial kingdom. So this is important. It's important. This is how we become legal heirs to the kingdom of God. And from Hiram Andrew's book, Doctrines of the Kingdom, he said, well, what does that mean to be a legal heir to the kingdom of God? Well, first, it means you have a right to be a steward over a sufficient amount of the Lord's property, or an income-producing responsibility to support yourself and your family. And second, it means you have equal rights with other stewards to draw funds from the Lord's storehouse where surplus property and wealth were kept to operate and expand the stewardship. So the law of consecration is really meant to be a mechanism where you become an integral part of the economic system, the economic society, where through consecration you prove the nature of your heart and you prove yourself true and faithful in all things. Like you prove that you do not have corruption in your heart. And then the government, the church, the brethren, right, will consider you trustworthy with an income-producing responsibility to be a producer for the storehouse.
You have the opportunity to continue to expand the stewardship in which you have.
And the church will even assist you in maximizing your talents and being able to produce to the maximum of your ability. And that will be different for each person according to their talents and their ability. But the law of consecration is integral to the economic covenant economy altogether. Mm-hmm. So these are just kind of points based off the last slide there, really. But so it's all built around covenants and consecration, which covenant, we think about promises, but covenant also means like legal covenants or deeds. Mm-hmm. Like there was that process of like actually
deeding over
giving property to the church and receiving stewardship back. And then we're going to talk about kind of the United Order versus the law of consecration, because the United Order was the Missouri application of the law of consecration, where the law of consecration itself is just the principle or the law. But what we see is that the storehouse, the bishop's storehouse is central to the execution of the law of consecration. And that last slide, it all had to do with you put property into the storehouse, you receive stewardship out of the storehouse, and the storehouse is kind of that capital that is used to keep things operational and to grow the economy.
Again, it's something we want to point out is that you can see a lot of these pieces, a lot of these elements are already set up, albeit not being utilized to the fullest potential and fullest intent. But you can see that as we become a more Zion people, as we become more righteous and can live the celestial law, there's a lot of pieces already in place to actually start allowing the church to actually implementing more fully some of these principles.
So I wanted to look real quick at what that United Order actually looked like and how it operated. So we find this in Doctrine and Covenants 42. So this is talking about the United Order, which is the Missouri application of the law of consecration. And it says, inasmuch as you impart of your substance unto the poor, you will do it unto me, and they shall be laid before the bishop. And this is referring to the presiding bishopric, right? And after they are laid before the bishop of my church, every man shall be made accountable to me, a steward over his own property, and as much as is sufficient for himself and family. And if there be more than necessary for their support, it shall be kept to administer to those who have not, that every man may be amply supplied and receive according to his wants, no poor among them. Mm-hmm. Therefore the residue shall be kept in my storehouse, to administer to the poor and the needy, and for the purpose of purchasing lands, for the public benefit of the church, building houses of worship, and building up of the New Jerusalem infrastructure. Mm-hmm. So this is important, because these are the principles of the law of consecration, and this is important in us today, knowing how to apply the law of consecration. Because what would happen is you'd give everything to the church by deed or covenant, and generally what would happen is the church would just give it back to you.
Yeah.
So it's kind of this unnecessary bureaucratic process, but it was important for like the act of actually giving it was important. Like that sacrifice and that faith was important. And generally you would just get your own property back, right? That's what it says. Will be made a steward over his own property. Mm-hmm. And that's important because now you get your own property back, but now it's not actually yours. It's the Lord's. You're being trusted with it. That's a completely different mindset.